It's the Field of Vision podcast with your host, Jordan Eisen.
How's it going, everybody, and welcome into the Field of Vision podcast. Joining me this week is Eric Cross of Fantrax. He kind of does basically everything related to baseball over there. He's a co-host, a 5-tool pod in Fantrax Toolshed. He does a lot of writing as well, of course. Just like a little bit of everything in the industry. And I definitely admire your work and like everything that you do. But something that I asked a lot of people about as like an intro question on the pod is, how did you even get this weird job that like really shouldn't be a job? Like how did you get into this crazy field? Because it's so like absurd if you really think about what it is. How did you like find yourself here?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me on. I'm a big fan of your work as well. I first saw you on, was it Potapalooza? Was that it? Or, yeah.
Yep.
So many live streams this spring. I kind of forget them all. But, yeah, good fan of your work as well. Thanks for having me on. And, yeah, so I started at Fantrax, that's usually a little over 4 years ago, back in March of 2017. I had played a few leagues on Fantrax. And then one of my buddies got an email. I wasn't signed up for the emails, and he got an email saying they were looking for writers. Said they were just starting up their content side of things. They were strictly a fantasy site before that, and fantasy platform, I should say. And he got the email. He's like, "Hey, I know you've kind of mentioned it, when we were hanging out, that you might want to do a little bit of this on the side. So, here's their email." I'm like, "Oh, cool." So I emailed in and sent in my kind of trial article or whatever you want to call it. It was on Austin Meadows, of all people, back when he was still a Pittsburgh Pirates prospect back then. And they liked me enough to bring me on, and kind of the rest has been history. So, and it's been a fun ride. I never thought like I would be where I am now when I started out 4 years ago, but it's a lot of hard work and a lot of passion, and it's meeting the right people. It's kind of grown into something where I can maybe make this a full-time job at some point. Still working on that part, but yeah, it's been a fun ride, and this industry is absolutely great. Been a lot of great people, a lot of helpful people that have helped me along the way. So it's been a fun time.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. That just like I think I said this to Justin Mason. Maybe it was once I stopped the recording behind the scenes. But like the fantasy baseball industry is just like it's really something else. Like everyone seems to know each other, even though you like only met a couple times face to face. Just like through Twitter and like
Yep.
through podcasts, like everyone knows each other like pretty well. And it's unlike anything that I've really experienced. Because like I'm definitely new, but I definitely have also met a lot of people that like through Twitter, through the podcast, and they like interact with me even though I'm just like some random kid who has a podcast. So yeah, it's a really cool community and group of people to be a part of. And for those of you who don't know Fantrax, if you're kind of familiar with Fantasy Pros, it's a little bit like that. It's just like a hub of a whole bunch of fantasy uh, analysis, really everything. Like they do a lot of baseball. I would guess that's like your number one thing, but also a lot of football, NBA, NHL, whatever.
Yep.
But yeah, so I to my knowledge, it's also like a pretty new site, and they're growing quick. That is for sure. And pretty big name in the fantasy industry. So yeah, that's exciting that you work for them. Pretty cool. So what we're doing today, even though baseball started earlier today, and I'm just sitting here as a Cardinals fan watching them beat up on one of my favorite players, Luis Castillo, watching the Royals put up 15 runs or whatever. Like we're still doing a fantasy mock draft. The timing didn't work out perfectly, but it's whatever. It's not like today changed our opinions completely. So we're going to do a mock draft. It's kind of just an excuse to talk about guys we like. And yeah, sum up like And it can be useful as well. Like, it's not just here's some content. It's like it's telling you our reasoning on why we like certain guys and maybe they're potential trade candidates. So that's what we're going to be getting into today. I have the number 2 overall pick. I don't like this position too much. I'm going to take Mookie Betts, though. I just have my cheat sheet up, like my rankings up, and he's my highest ranked guy. He just brings everything you want to the table. Mike Trout is great, but obviously, I think Mookie Betts is a better lock for steals, and just as stable in every other category, if not better in runs, because he might be the leading candidate in runs. So you have the number 7 overall pick, and um, all the auto picks are going. And who are you looking at number 7 overall?
Yeah, so interesting spot here being in the middle of the rounds. And yeah, you took Mookie at 2. I like that pick. And then DeGrom, Tatis, Soto, and Trout went 3 through 6. And that leaves my highest player on the board, who's my number 6 overall player for this year. That's Trea Turner. I love his lineup spot, hitting in front of Juan Soto, and that lineup's improved, adding Josh Bell to the mix as well. So I think he's going to score a ton of runs this year. I think as long as he stays healthy, which obviously has been a little bit of an issue in the past for him, but more so the few years back, and he's been fairly healthy the last couple of years. I think he's just all around stuff. The added power he brings to the table now. He's more than just a 12 to 15 home run guy. He's a potential 25 homer guy with 30 plus steals, good average. I think he's just to be an all around stud, and getting that shortstop position locked in early with that speed. So I think Trea Turner is my pick here, locking that in.
He is my top ranked batter. I have both Cole and is Shane Bieber above him, but that's definitely more of a matter of preference, I think. I like Turner. I think he was my pick at 8 overall in TGFBI, so can't really disagree with you there at all.
And now my second pick here, seeing who went. I was hoping Harper would fall to me. He did not. So let's see, looking who's on the board here. I've been trying to go, in years past, I was always, first 2 rounds at least I'd go hitters. But this year, last couple of years, especially this year, I've started taking pitchers in the second round. And one that I really like that's left on the board here, even though my boy Bo Bichette's still on the board, but I don't know if I want to go back-to-back shortstops here to start. So I will go with Lucas Giolito of the White Sox.
I wanted him.
Yeah, it's funny. I used to be, when he was a prospect, I was very, very high on him. And then, it kind of that faded when he was just one of the worst pitchers in baseball first year or 2 of his career. But the turnaround he's made, the pitch mix that he has, change up, breaking ball, fastball. I really liked Giolito this year. And he's one that he's not afraid to go up in the zone with his change up. It's really like the pitch mix. A lot of strikeouts, keep the ratios in check. He's right in that mix of that second tier with Yu Darvish and Aaron Nola, Walker Buehler, Trevor Bauer, all of them. But I didn't get a lot of Giolito shares this spring, so I'm gonna change that and go Giolito here.
Yeah, Giolito is my SP4, so I was hoping you would go Darvish or someone else with that pick in your little lead in. You were talking about just a pitcher you really like. I was hoping it would be Darvish. I like Darvish.
I do too.
But he's still one spot behind Giolito for me, and I think Giolito would have fallen if you had taken Darvish. So possible, I do agree, though. If you can, I would be happy. I want a starting pitcher in round 2, basically in every league. Unless you're just really stuck and you have to take Flaherty. I wouldn't be for that. But yeah, Luis Castillo, Max Scherzer, I'd be fine with them if it came down to it. Fortunately for me, I'm gonna grab Aaron Nola here. I just think he's the next best thing, really. And if we're playing the game where we have to guess who's going to come off the board, I feel pretty comfortable in thinking that Luis Castillo is going to come back to me over Aaron Nola. And even still, I like Nola more anyways. So yeah, what do you know?
I do too.
Here,
I love Aaron Nola.
yeah, I think, let me see. I think I have, it goes Giolito, Darvish, Bauer, Nola for me. So obviously I like Nola a lot. I just think he's good. I do think that a reason that I like Giolito more is because I think we're just completely discounting that Aaron Nola was fine. He didn't have any like skill set change or anything, and he was just like not that good one year. And like obviously Giolito was the worst pitcher in baseball for like a year and a half, but he made his skill set change since then. Nola's bad or like decent year, I think, is more of just a testament to like that can happen for him. If his fastball isn't doing work, if his changeup's a little iffier, I forget exactly what the like main problem was, but it was something with pitch selection. So that could come back, but I still like him a lot. And yeah, with this next pick, I'm going Luis Castillo. He had a horrible outing today. I don't care. I think he's good. I think Lucas
Yeah,
Giolito.
it's one start.
Yeah, Lucas Giolito had like a horrible start of the Yu Darvish, Lucas Giolito. Both had horrible starts to start off 2020, and they were two of the best pitchers. So it's fine. And yeah, Castillo has some of the best stuff in the game. So I am perfectly okay with taking him in early round 3.
Yeah, that's a great pick. He's a very good pitcher, one of the best changeups in baseball, maybe the best changeup in baseball. So with my third pick here, middle of the third round, I've been trying to lock in an outfield fairly early in all my drafts because I like a lot of the top outfield options and not so much. There's some guys in the middle rounds, but that's usually where I attack other areas. So I'll probably gotta go outfield here, and definitely love this. My top guy available here, Kyle Tucker. I'm gonna take him here. I wrote an article that came out on Monday, I believe it was, earlier this week, about I wrote 6 guys that could be potentially first round picks next year, and Kyle Tucker was like the first name that popped into my mind. He proved throughout his minor league career that he is a big time power speed threat. Had, I think, was it 3 straight 2020 seasons, including a 30-30 season in 2019. Yeah, that was a AAA, in the hitter friendly Pacific Coast League. But hey, 30-30 is 30-30. And he's shown that in the major leagues too, that power speed threat is there. Maybe the average isn't going to be great with him. Maybe he's like a 270 guy, but that's fine when you're going to be potentially 30 plus home runs, 20 plus steals, a ton of RBI and runs scored in a still very good Houston lineup, which he'll be hitting right in the middle of, around guys like Yordan Alvarez and Michael Brantley and Jose Altuve. So I think he's just to be at least a 4.5 category stud. And if he improves against off-speed pitches, maybe he gets up 280, 290. He's had seasons over 300 in the minor league, so I wouldn't rule that out if he makes those improvements against off-speed pitches and breaking pitches. So he mashes fastballs, so get better against the other pitch types, I should say, and I think you could see that average trend up as well, and maybe a 5-category stud. So kind of an easy pick here to take Kyle Tucker. We're very high on him.
Yeah, and if we were doing this in like normal draft season, obviously we wouldn't know it. But the fact is, he's batting cleanup today, so
Yep.
there was some concern that he would be batting like 7th in the order or something. Yordan Alvarez moved down to 6. I do think Alvarez, while he's healthy, is probably a better batter. But the Astros seem like they want Kyle Tucker high in their lineup, and he's batting cleanup. So yeah, that is cool. Again, your team's looking a lot like my TGFBI team. I took Turner in the first. I think it was Castillo in the second and Kyle Tucker in the third. So yeah, I definitely have nothing wrong with any of those picks.
Now here in round 4, I have been double tapping pitchers through like rounds 4 or 5 and looking at the available pitchers. And he's another one that didn't pitch too well today. He got like 3 or 4 runs in like 4 or 5 innings. I forget the exact line, but something, close to a run per inning he gave up. But I'm really high on Brandon Woodruff this year. Both him and Corbin Burnes, I think, are going to be very, very good top 10 caliber pitchers this year. And I think Woodruff is my SP 10 or 11 for this year, and to get him, get even a 12 teamer to get him as my number 2 pitcher, I think is great. I think he's going to be one of the top strikeout pitchers on a per inning basis this year, and he's shown he was one of those last year. Yeah, I don't think he'll post elite ratios, but I think good enough, like low 3 ERA, 1.1 WHIP, something like that. I really like what they're doing up there in Milwaukee with that pitching staff. So I'll take Woodruff here as my SP2.
Yeah, and if you did see me on TGFBI on Potapalooza, I did pick him as one of my busts, but it wasn't really a bust. It was more just like, let's pour some cold water on this guy. Like he was rising up draft boards too high for my liking. I think he's fine in round 4. I do have guys I would rather have, I think, at this point in terms of bats. But if you want a pitcher, I think he's my top ranked pitcher. So no problems with that. I'm in a weird situation. This is one of the reasons I don't like picking at the turn, like at pick 2. That's not ideal for me because I really want to get Whit Merrifield in round 3 or 4 in every draft I can. It's not because of really who he is. I think he's good in average, good in steals, but it's just because of the position eligibility he gives you in the scarce category contributions he gives you as well. Unfortunately, picking at pick 2, early round 3 was just too early for him, I think, when you can still grab Luis Castillo, and he didn't fall to me in round 4. That said, I think I'll fill up this spot with Tim Anderson. Kind of a similar thing to Whit Merrifield. I think a little worse at everything except for probably power. I really like Whit, especially because of the eligibility, but it didn't work out. So I'm here with Tim Anderson, who I don't think will hit as high of an average, probably less steals, maybe more runs. I don't know. I'm not too enthusiastic about that pick, but it's what was left, and he was the top ranked player on my board. All right. And now this next pick, I definitely want to come away with a pitcher just because this tier of pitchers, for me, it stretches from Corbin Burnes at number 14 all the way down to Blake Snell at number 18. And you can include Brandon Woodruff if you want in that tier. So I'm going to take Corbin Burnes because I really like picking guys in that tier of guys, and I don't think any of them are going to come back to me in late round 5. So I'll take one here. None of the bats really interest me. My top ranked bat right now is George Springer, but the injury, I don't think it's concerning, but just the missed time is a little, it's something to be aware of course. So if it weren't for the injury, he'd definitely be my top ranked player, but I don't know. None of the bats really excite me, so I'm going to go with Corbin Burnes, who you already said you liked. So I get a little bit of approval there as
Oh,
well.
I love Corbin Burnes. Yeah. Yeah, he's the. I included one pitcher in that article I was mentioning, just because why not? Just have fun with it. Put one pitcher in the article, and Corbin Burnes was the pitcher I included. So, I think he definitely has that chance to take another step and be kind of up where we're valuing Giolito and Nola. I think he can get right into that second tier behind that big tier of Bieber, Cole, and DeGrom. So, definitely love that pick. Love Corbin Burnes this year. Have him on a lot of teams. He's probably my most rostered pitcher. I'd have to look, but he's probably at least up there as one of my most rostered players overall. Here, round 5, a couple first basemen just went. Vladdy and Pete Alonso. I was debating Vlad here, as I like how he's looking in spring training and the weight loss. It's all I saw on my Instagram all offseason was him working out, and he was posting those like every day.
Is that what boosting him this high comes down to, like that plus the prospect pedigree, or are there actual like do you think his launch angle is like he did raise it in spring training, but it was a small sample size and it wasn't like that
Right.
extravagant. So is this because at the beginning of draft season, like I thought it was like a certainty he's going in the 70s somewhere, and he's just been rising this whole time. So do you think it's like people are just scared of missing out, so they want to grab him in some leagues, so they start grabbing him early? Do you think it's like why do you think why do you want him this high? Because of course one of the best prospects in the past several years, but he hasn't done much yet, and you still have really good batters on the board. So why would you consider him this high?
Yeah, I think the reason why he's kind of moved up is, the fear of missing out on him, the FOMO, as some people call it. But yeah, the launch angle did improve this spring, but then it kind of went back down to 2020 levels at near the end of spring training last week or two. But just the fact that he lost, like I think it was 42 pounds, which is great to see. But obviously, losing weight doesn't make you a better hitter right off the bat. So, but just like the underlying metrics, he crushes the ball. He's up there with Acuna and Tatis in terms of hard contact rate, and we saw in that home run derby that he has some of the best raw power in the game. So I think it's just that fear of, oh, what if this is the year where he breaks out and hits 300 with 40 home runs? Is that going to happen? Probably not, but he does look, and he had a couple of really hard hit balls today. I think that his first inning hit was I think it was the hardest hit ball in the Statcast era off of Garrett
Really?
Cole. So since
Wow.
2015. So that is, I heard that in the broadcast. I was like, wow, Statcast has been around 6 years now, and this was the hardest hit ball of the guy that's been, one of the top 2 or 3 pitchers in the game for the last half decade. So that was really impressive. I'm going to go with a different slugger here, though. It's maybe a little early for him, but I've missed out on him a lot because everyone else loves him as much as I do. That's Yordan Alvarez of the Astros, who was arguably the best hitter in baseball after his June 9th debut back in 2019. He was top 2 or 3, and like every offensive stat that is good, like WOBA and slugging percentage and ISO and hard contact, exit velocity, everything that is a positive offensive stat in terms of hitting the ball hard, he was up there in, and as a rookie, which is absolutely astonishing. And everyone kind of worries about the knees, but all the reports I've heard, and we have an injury expert who is an actual doctor that writes articles for us at Fantrax HQ, a guy named Nick Savali, who's actually Aaron Savali's brother, his older brother, and he's not worried about the knees at all. He eased any little concern I had. He eased that when we had him on 5-tool back in January or so. I forget when it was, middle of the off season, but just love that 4 category production. Excuse me. From Yordan, he's an absolute stud. Another guy hitting in the middle of that Houston lineup. So I think he's going to have a big year. And that leads me to pick 6 here.
And also, so something that I kind of noticed, and it's not like it's not a reason you should take a person. It's just kind of an added bonus. If Kyle Tucker doesn't have a great season, Yordan Alvarez is moving up in the lineup. If Yordan Alvarez gets injured, Kyle Tucker's moving up in the lineup. So it's kind of like a handcuff a little bit. So that is definitely a plus. It's not like a huge deal, but another thing about that pick, I do think you probably could have waited, but take your guy. Like if I was just told Yordan Alvarez is not going to be there for you next round, I think that is a perfectly fine pick. I just think you might have been able to wait, but if you don't think it's worth the risk, I get that as well.
Yeah, he probably could have fallen at least one more round to this pick here. That's definitely possible because, like I said, he's utility only. People shy away from that, even though I don't shy away from the utility thing. Yeah, it's not great. You'd rather have him have outfield eligibility, of course, but if you're confident in your own drafting skills, you can work around it. Especially, it's not like you're taking him second round, third round, something like that. It's sixth round, seventh round, eighth round, depending on the draft, and so I think you can definitely work around that, especially when he's giving you the type of production that he's capable of. Let's see here, pick. I was hoping this guy would fall back to me, and he did. There's a lot of bounce backs this year, a lot of good values at the third base position, and Yoan Moncada is one of them. I believe what we saw from him in 2019 was very legit, and it was backed up, by all of his underlying metrics. He hit the ball hard. Barrel rate was very good, and he's hitting in the middle of a great White Sox lineup in a good hitter's park there in Chicago. And I think, he's great value this year. He's fallen into the 70s and 80s, and we're at pick, what's that? We're a little bit before that. We're pick 66, I believe, here. So it's a little bit before his ADP, but I like the bounce back potential here. And third base kind of gets to the point after this range, after him, and Eugenio Suarez is a good pick here as well. But really love Moncada as a bounce back to what he showed pre-2020, where he was a top 30 or so player. I think he can get back to that range. So I think I love the potential return on investment here. So I will go back-to-back hitters and grab Yoan Moncada.
All right. Okay, my guy fell. So when you were speaking about Yordan Alvarez being a DH and just like not really worrying about that, I wanted to butt in, but I wanted to see if my guy would fall as well. And it's Nelson Cruz. So a big my like are you familiar with Adam Azer at all?
Yeah.
Okay. So last year on the pod, he talked a lot about what was it called? Tap AMC, which is just an absurd acronym. It kind of was just a joke. 2 aces plus Paxton. Wait. I don't know what it stood for. It was just a absurd thing for draft strategy, and I kind of came up with a similar one for myself this year. So it's Tawad Hape. So that's 3 aces, wit, as in Whit Merrifield, 2 aces, wit, and DH, and position eligibility. So basically what it is I just really love DHs this year, and I know I'm not alone in that, but I want one in every single one of my league, preferably Cruz or Alvarez, whichever one doesn't go first. So in this case, you took Alvarez, so that's my cue to take Cruz. And yeah, so I think both of those guys are insane values, and if you can get like Whit Merrifield, a guy that has first base and outfield eligibility, let's say Trey Mancini, like a Tommy Edman and Max Muncy, it completely mitigates the whole DH only thing. Because I do think that the DH only spot is really annoying, especially mid-season when you have to, like, let's say I need to fill my third base position, but there's just no one that I really want there. And I just want to take a shortstop. Like, having a DH only person can really interfere with that if the shortstop is like by far the best guy on waivers. So what I like to do is grab Max Muncy at some point, and then you can fill up your infield and just play Max Muncy wherever you need him to in your infield, and then just play around with your roster, and you'll be able to like have basically the same or better position eligibility as someone who doesn't have a DH only. And so I think another big thing is taking 3 really good pitchers only. I did in this draft in Nola, Castillo, and Burnes. So I think that's a huge thing, but that does put you really behind on hitting categories. So you have Whit Merrifield, hopefully. In this case, I didn't get him, which I'm upset about, but it's whatever. I can definitely figure it out. So Whit Merrifield kind of is your anchor for steals. And then the DH, like how much worse is Nelson Cruz in just like raw statistics than like someone who might go in like round 3 or something. Like let's call it Corey Seager. Like it's not a huge difference. So I
No,
think
it's not. It's just people get worried because Cruz is 40 years old. People get
yeah,
worried about that, but he just keeps hitting.
I don't care about that at all. Um, so
Me neither.
there are some drawbacks to Cruz, but I think pitching early is like a must for me. And then if possible, I would definitely like to get Witt for the steals. In this case, it was Tim Anderson, which isn't great for position eligibility, but it's fine. And then just counter the DH only thing with a bunch of multi-eligible guys. And I've done that, I think, in every league, and I really like all of my teams. So yeah, it's definitely a lot of things have to go right for it to go perfectly. But like in this draft, I wasn't able to get Merrifield, so maybe I'll just take Nick Solak late. Like he's not the same, but he has that second base outfield eligibility, so I can do something like that. There are a lot of ways to go about it, and there are specific players that work best, I think, but um, there are definitely alternatives as well. So now I'm just going to take another guy who I think is just straight up a slugger. Nick Castellanos. I think he's really good. Um, Last year was weird with the Reds just having BABIP problems for some reason. So that was odd. I think his batting average should definitely be above 270, but also be closer to 290. Like I feel comfortable saying his batting average is a plus. I think he's a plus power hitter as well, which is huge when you have a team build like this, where you got Mookie, Tim Anderson, and Nelson Cruz. His power helps out a lot. I just think he's a really good hitter. Do you agree with Castellanos, or do you think the strikeout rate or something like that is a little concerning? Because I just don't.
I don't necessarily have any issues with Castellanos. I've never been super high on Castellanos, but I get why people are. Like, the power he's shown, the ballpark he's in, he could be, easily could be a top 50 player at season's end. I definitely think he could be. Is it that power? He could be a 40 home run bat. He showed that in his little cup of coffee. Not a cup of coffee, it was longer than that, but his little time with the Cubs and just getting out of Detroit. I think kind of rejuvenated him. Now he's in a very good ballpark. So I definitely could see him, kind of not bouncing back. He don't have a down year, but kind of vaulting up into that top 50. He definitely has the upside too, but he kind of just falls into that. This is the range I usually try to target other players, and I think I like other players here more. Like I'm looking at outfielders here from my pick, and there's two that I'm debating between both outfielders. I'm gonna go another kind of almost like the Yoan Moncada of the outfield, kind of like a really big bounce back
Austin
potential.
Meadows. Yeah.
Yep, there it is. You know it. Yeah, and both of them were affected by COVID last year, and Meadows even said, like I didn't feel right the entire season. So looked all right this spring. The average wasn't there, but he did hit a home run today, so it makes me feel good about that. I think he can get back to where he was, and he's one of the guys I'm not worried about Tampa Bay kind of messing around with him and platooning. There's like 3 or 4 guys in that lineup that I don't worry about playing time, and he's one of them, and he'll probably hit high in that order regardless. Probably always top 3 or 4. Even that's not a great lineup, but it's a good lineup. He's gonna have a lot of good hitters parks ahead in the American League East in general. It's just filled with good hitters parks. Like Tampa Bay actually might be the worst hitters park in that division, and it's still a good hitters park, I think. But he's got to have a lot of games in Fenway and Yankee Stadium and Camden and whatever the ballpark name is that Toronto's playing in this year, but another hitters park. So I think he's having a nice bounce back year. 25, 30 home runs, good average. Maybe pushing 160 to 180 combined runs and RBI. Add in 8, 10 steals or so. So I think he's a good value here. So I will take him and see who
Yep.
falls to the next pick.
I
Yeah,
have
the other guy I was
nothing.
debating went right after it. Michael Conforto was the other guy I was debating. He went right after. So
I have nothing wrong with it. I wouldn't do it just because I do think there's a little bit of risk that last year was just real, and we're leaning on COVID as an excuse for him.
yeah,
But I do
that's
like
fair.
him. In Pittsburgh, he was probably like he was really one of my favorite players. I don't know why, just kind of happened. But yeah, I like him. Not I wouldn't take him there, but nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, he's I might have a little bit of a sweet spot for him because he was the person I wrote my first ever article about on Fantrax. So I've always had a little bit of a sweet spot for Austin Meadows. So I'm probably gonna go back to the pitching side of things here. I'm leaning towards going. There's a lot of good bats on the board though that I don't want to pass up, but I do want to grab a third pitcher here, and I'm probably gonna go. I might even go to a reliever here. Actually, maybe not. Take that back. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with this guy, Jesus Luzardo, the Oakland Athletics. A guy I've always liked a lot coming up through the minor leagues. Really, really good stuff. He's got the 3 pitch mix, and big time breaking ball, good changeup, good fastball. I think he's have a lot of strikeouts. You didn't blow anybody away in his debut. He hasn't really excelled yet. He's been decent so far. He hasn't really been great, but I think there's big time upside there. He's got all the makings of a guy that could be a top 20 starter or so. And this is kind of like where he's been taken back into the top 100. Got him in round 8 here. So I think that was solid value. I don't think I reached too much there. So
Yeah,
I like Luzardo as my 3.
he's one of my favorite targets just overall in entire fantasy baseball. I really like him. As a matter of fact, Tawadhape was Tawaldhape with like 3 aces, Witt, and Luzardo. So I really like him. I got rid of it because I was like, this is already too complicated. Let's simplify it a little bit. So yeah, big fan of Luzardo. I was hoping he would fall to me. I'm going to take Max Muncy. He's part of my mitigating the DH eligibility plan. So I feel a need to grab him. But my next pick, hopefully, will be Charlie Morton. If you had not taken Luzardo, this pick would be Luzardo. But Charlie Morton to me is the next best starter on the board. And though I do have what I consider 3 aces in Nola, Castillo, and Burnes, I definitely want a good SP4. I want 6 good starting pitchers that like I feel good about on every team. So I'm going to take Charlie Morton. I just think last year was a little fluky. The injury wasn't it held him back a little bit. So yeah, I think he is due for a bounce back, a lot like your Moncada and Meadows takes, except without the COVID, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. Morton's a great option there as well. And I was hoping Ian Anderson would fall to me here. He went 2 picks before me. So I got to switch things up a little bit here. I'm probably going to go. So I got 3 pitchers already. So that's not too bad. See, this is the range where I usually start taking a lot of pitchers because I'm not huge on the hitters here. But one guy I am big on that I already have a shortstop, but I can plug him in my middle infield. I drafted a lot this spring. I drafted him 3 times in one day. One was a mock draft, and then one was dynasty, and one was redraft. But I got him 3 times in one day. And that's Dansby Swanson from the Braves. He's steadily improved every year. Like he never had the numbers that blow your socks off. He's never. I don't think he's ever going to fully live up to that number 1 pick kind of stigma, but he's very, very good. Like I said, he's steadily improving. I think he's have a pretty solid average, 270 to 280 range, 20, 25 home runs, 10 to 15 steals, good counting stats, hitting somewhere in the middle of that, good Atlanta Braves lineup. So he'll have a lot of, he'll be driving in Acuna and Freeman and Ozuna and Albies a lot. Those guys will be hitting right in front of him. So a lot of RBI opportunities as well. And I like getting, kind of 2 second basemen. I like locking up my middle infield early or fairly early, kind of like by this, one pick 125 range or so, just because shortstop after Swanson and Correa kind of falls off. Semi too, but kind of falls off. It's a lot of question marks. So same with second base, gets kind of thin as well. So I like kind of getting my middle infield locked up, so I don't have to get a guy I don't like and have to go that route later on. So I'll lock up middle infield here and take Dansby Swanson.
Yeah, I do like a couple guys late. Just like what's his name? Shoot, second baseman for the White Sox, prospect Nick Madrigal. Yeah,
yep.
I like him. I like Nick Solak. I already mentioned. There are a couple guys, but I do agree that it shallows out. And if we were playing out this league, taking 2 shortstops takes away one for someone who actually needs it. So,
Right,
it's a
good trade
strategy.
chip always.
Yeah, exactly. Because it does get pretty gross at about this point. But yeah,
yeah, it sure does. So next pick here, I'm glad a couple of the arms I was eyeing here fell. I got to pick between the two. I'm gonna go Lance McCullers Jr. It's my third Astro. That wasn't planning that when we started, but there's obviously a fair amount of risk that goes into rostering Lance McCullers Jr., but the talent is very high as well. Or he could be a top 25 arm this year. Big time strikeout stuff, big swing and miss stuff, the breaking balls that he has, and he looked pretty solid. It looks like he's healthy right now. So we'll see how long that lasts. Hopefully this is the year. He looked good last year when he came back. So I think this is going to be a year, and even if he only pitches 130 to 140, which is probably fair, that's not as big of a gap as it used to be, right? Like there's not as many guys going 200 plus. You'll probably get like Garrett Cole, Lance Lynn, DeGrom, those types going that much, but kind of like the new 200 is more like 170, 175. You have a lot of guys going in that range. The pitch counts are coming down from what they used to be when I was a kid watching baseball. Nobody really throws 120, 130 pitches consistently anymore. So 130, 140 isn't that far off from as what it used to be. So I think what he can give you on a per inning basis and the elite strikeouts, I think it's a good pitcher to have as your SP4.
Yeah, I like Lance McCullers, and I think this is kind of a dead zone for starting pitchers, so I don't have him ranked that high in my overall, but of the remaining starters, he is one of the top guys on my list. So you mentioned shortstop shallowing out pretty quick. I think third base shallows out even faster at this point. So the top guys remaining are Ke'Bryan Hayes, Chris Bryant, Tommy Edman, Gio Urshela. And then after that, it's like Mike Moustakas and Andres Jimenez. So it gets really bad. And a big part of my strategy with Max Muncy and the DH is that Muncy needs to be like open. He can't be in just one position. So I found in a lot of mocks where I do this thing with the DH in Muncy, I feel like I definitely want him in my third base spot. Even though I want him to be like flexible. So because I just like resort to him as my third baseman because the other ones suck. But I like Ke'Bryan Hayes a lot. He's towards the top of my board, not quite there, but I do like the third base eligibility a lot because it frees up Muncy even more, which is something that I'm trying to do. And yeah, he's I like the player as well. Maybe I would rather have a couple other guys, but I like Muncy for sure. I mean, what's his name? Hayes. What are your thoughts on Hayes? Let me ask real quick.
Yeah, it's funny. Hayes is one I've come around to a lot. I was always lukewarm on him as a prospect because I was like he kind of fell into that better in real life than fantasy mold, which is, nobody ever wants to hear that when, we're talking fantasy baseball, but he is definitely like one I've warmed up to, where I still don't think he's going to be a stud. Like, some people think he's going to be a stud and, a perennial all-star. I'm still not there, but definitely like he does everything. He doesn't struggle anywhere. Like, there's no like gaping holes in this game. Like, he's not going to have a bad average or not steal any bases. He just does everything right, and getting that speed from a third base, which is usually not a speed you get a position you get a lot of speed from outside of Jose Ramirez. So I think that's very valuable, and he's been crushing the ball this spring, at a home run today, which was an absolute missile. So I'm coming around to him. I still don't like that lineup, because obviously that Pittsburgh lineup is atrocious around him. So I question how many the runs and RBIs, if they'll be that high. But as the player in general, I'm starting to really like Brian Hayes.
Yeah, but that also means that even if he's not great, like not to a point where you have to drop him, but like he's just not everything we want him to be, he's not moving down in the lineup. Like, he's batting
Right.
top 4 no matter what.
Exactly.
So,
yep.
I mean, there's a chance he's just not special and he's like fine. But I do think that he's a pretty good lock for batting like high in the lineup, basically no matter what.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, he definitely is.
With this next pick, it's interesting because, as I said, I want 6 good starting pitchers. And I think it gets pretty gross after this. Like, it's already kind of gross, but there's one guy who kind of stands out to me. It's Sandy Alcantara or Alcantara. I'm not sure. So I'm going to take him. He's not even close to top ranked in my overall, but I think like Will Myers is the top guy in my overall rankings, but I definitely have questions about him, and I am not. Yeah, I think there are decent alternatives to him later in drafts with guys like, I don't know, like Nick Senzel maybe, or like Ryan Mountcastle. They're not the same, but they're outfielders that I think will be solid. So I'm going to go ahead and take Sandy Alcantara right here, because Joe Musgrove just went. I kind of was hoping for him. But after this, I don't know who the next best starting pitcher is, and I don't want to have to think about it. So taking Sandy Alcantara as my SP5. So I don't really have to worry about starting pitcher for a little bit. I'll still continue taking them because I don't think you really can have too many. But yeah. Do you have any thoughts on Alcantara or the rest of the starters at this point in the draft?
No, I like Alcantara a lot. He was dealing today. He's been pumping gas this spring, looking really good. So I like the pick there, and I'm high on Joe Musgrove as well. He was one I was debating with my last pick when I went McCullers. I was kind of debating between those two. So those are 2 guys. Plus, McCullers, 3 guys I really like in this range that I've been getting a lot of shares of. I usually have at least one of these 3 in every draft I'm in for the most part. So I definitely like Alcantara there. I'm going to go back to the outfield here. And a guy that I think gets a little underrated at times, because he's not one that ever stands out in any one area. Almost kind of like the older Brian Hayes of the outfield. That's Tommy Pham. Like I said, he's not a 30 home run hitter. He's not going to steal you 30, but he just does a lot of things well. He's a hit high. His on base skills will keep him high in the order. Hitting ahead of guys like Tatis and Machado. And once he's leading off right now because Grisham is on the IL, he'll probably still hit second, or I don't know how they'll work that, but he'll still hit high in the order. You don't pop this guy with his OBP down the bottom of the order, so he'll probably either hit first or second, even when Grisham does come back in a couple of weeks. He's just everything well. He's a perennial 20-20 guy. I think he's have a lot of runs scored. Should have good RBI totals as well. Even hitting high in that San Diego lineup. That lineup's pretty loaded 1 through 9. So I think he'll still have a lot of counting stats as well. And getting a third outfielder here, as it kind of gets a little riskier, at this part of the draft for outfielders. So I like locking in my third outfielder here.
Yeah. And while we're at this point in the draft, are you thinking about closers at all, or are
Yeah,
you
I
more
was
of
thinking, I
a
was thinking
late round
closers a
closer
little.
guy?
Yeah, I was thinking closers a little earlier. The problem is, I always go into most of these drafts, wanting to get a good closer early, but they always seem to get bumped up too high to the point where I just can't bring myself to do it. And you look at some of the top relievers on the board right now, and it's just a lot of question marks that I don't really want to deal with. Like, one of the top guys available right now for closers is Craig Kimbrell. And as a Red Sox fan, I went through the Craig Kimbrell headaches. And yeah, he was part of our championship team in 2018, but I just don't see him. He hasn't been good since probably 2018, 2019. He was not good the last couple of years. So I just don't want to, there's so many closing options later too. Like, I don't think there's a huge difference between guys going now and guys going in 100 picks. So I'm probably going to try to attack other areas here. And then, in a few rounds, probably start going, at looking for my relievers.
Yep.
This is an interesting part of the. I'm looking at another starting pitcher here. There's a few that I really like, and a guy like Sixto Sanchez is still on the board. But if we did this yesterday, I would absolutely take him here. But now I'm hearing he has dealing with some shoulder discomfort, so that makes me a little weary of Miami's probably gonna baby him. Like, they have no reason to rush him back from something like this. So I'm gonna pass on Sixto, but I'm gonna take one of his teammates, who's another guy I think this is very underrated because he's not flashy, when compared to Alcantara or Sixto, and that's Pablo Lopez. He's a really good, he's a pitcher, man. He's just a really good, pitch mix, and sequence his pitches well. Solid command and control. Doesn't get himself into too many jams. Really, really good changeup. Love watching him pitch. And yeah, I don't think he's gonna be an elite K guy, but I think he can be right around a K per inning with good ratios. That's a really, really good up and coming Miami rotation down there, and he's been a big part of it. So, as my SP5, I'm very happy with Pablo Lopez.
Yep. Pablo Lopez is cool. And I just talked about how starting pitchers start to get kind of gross. I don't think he's bad at all, but when starting pitcher is getting this bad this quick, I think you need to scoop one up while they still are there. Okay, my guy Trey Mancini, easy.
I
He's
love
got
Mancini.
he's got that first base outfield thing that I'm looking for when I've got these DHs. Oh, apparently he doesn't have first base, but maybe he'll pick it up. And if not, he can sit there in my outfield. Not a big deal. Regardless of the position eligibility, I just really I think he's great. And that's that. So I'm not usually a big proponent of taking a catcher early, but if I do, it is going to be Travis d'Arnaud. I think I think I'm gonna go with d'Arnaud right now. He's one of my top ranked guys, and my top ranked is Franmil already have a DH. Gosman already have a lot of starters. CJ Cron, I'm considering, but I think in the end, I'm gonna go d'Arnaud. I really don't like some of the late catchers that just don't even play every day. But I think d'Arnaud is has a shot at being like a really plus bat in your lineup. In addition to him being catcher, which is something that not a lot of people can say.
Yeah, he's one of the few catchers I like. I don't like a lot of catchers, but yeah, Darno is a good one. He's my catcher in my home keeper league this year, so I do like Darno. I usually don't go catcher this early, but in a two catcher league, I can see it. And I'm going back to the outfield here. I totally missed this guy last time. I would have taken him where I took Tommy Pham 2 picks ago. Guy that's looking really, really good this spring. He's got to hit lead off, it looks like, as well. Victor Robles, he's one people are really down on. The batted ball metrics have been absolutely terrible. He's been, bottom, 3-4% in the league, and exit velocity, hard hit rate. Even when you take out the bunts, it still wasn't good. but he was looking really good this spring. Had a few home runs, was stealing bases. I think he had like 3 home runs and 4 steals or something like that. Hit around 300. And I see he still hit leadoff in front of the Juan Sotos and Josh Bells, and Trea Turner. So love that lineup spot for him. So like I said, the speed's still there. I think he's a 25 to 30 steal guy. And just getting, that's kind of like my approach is I want to get, obviously some picks you don't get speed, right? But I want at least, 2/3 or so of my hitters to be able to give me something in the stolen base department. That's why I took, Turner early. Moncada can give me some. Swanson give me a little bit. Tucker gives me a good amount. Meadows 10 or 12. Pham 20. All my guys so far outside of Jordan Alvarez have given me some sort of speed element. And getting another guy like Victor Robles who can contribute across the board and is looking really good right now. He was going top 100 some of the late drafts this spring. So getting him here in round 13 is a steal, and I probably should have taken him 2 rounds ago, but I totally overlooked him when I took Tommy Pham. But I'll happily take him here then.
Yep. I don't think he's very good, but sometimes when it comes to steals, you can't take guys who are actually good. And there are definitely a lot of people out there that think he's just like a solid hitter. I'm not one of those people, but if you think you need the speed, I get it.
Yeah, see, my next pick, you're trying to look at my... I can probably go back to the pitching side of things, though. I do need to fill some more of my infield here. I only have 3 infielders so far. So I'll probably go back to the infield here. But infield, there's not many guys I like. This is a little early for this guy, I think, but I like him more than most. So I'm gonna go in something we mentioned earlier on the pod. Nick Madrigal get some more speed here. He's one, people kind of shy away from Madrigal sometimes because he doesn't have much power. He's only going to add maybe 4 or 5 home runs a year. But I think it's what he brings to the table from a position that gets really, really sketchy after like pick 100 or so. Even around pick 100, you're going with someone like Jose Altuve, and what's he going to give you? So really, it drops off to quick at second base. There are some guys, but it's a lot more question marks than proven commodities at this position. And he's not proven at all either. He's obviously only was debuted last year, but already established himself as one of the best contact hitters in the game. He was top 5 in the league in contact rate, O contact, Z contact, and had the 3rd lowest swinging strike rate. He's basically David Fletcher with more speed. So I really like him. He's probably gonna hit low in the order. That's fine. I can see him moving up though, because outside of Tim Anderson, there's a lot of question marks as to who could hit high in that order. So I could see him moving up as the season progresses, maybe even hitting second, down the road if he's hitting over 300, which he has the capability of doing. And I could see him moving up and getting a lot of runs scored as well. So at least the good average and speed floor here with the potential for more in run score department. So I'm okay taking Nick Madrigal here.
I like Madrigal. Yeah, I agree. And even if he does stick at 9, I don't think that's a horrible thing. That means you have a lot of really good players batting right after you.
Right. Yep.
So I would rather him lead off, of course, but it's not the worst thing to have. Like, imagine he moved up to 1 and then everyone just got pushed down, like as if he were leading off an inning. It would go Madrigal, Anderson, Eaton, not great, whatever, Abreu, Moncada, and then just have the rest of the White Sox lineup. And I do think this lineup is going to move around as well. The guy I'm going to take here, CJ Cron, pretty easily. I mentioned he was one of my top ranked guys last round. And if you follow baseball enough, you know the deal with Cron. He's just like, he's put up stats in the past. Now he's in Coors. That's really the case for him. So yeah, I'm going CJ Cron, and apparently Mancini is not first base eligible. So that fills in my first base spot because it's not as much like out third base and shortstop where it gets absolutely awful. Like you can still grab Yuli Gurriel or like Nate Lowe later. But I do think it experiences a drop off after Cron, where you kind of have to worry about some guys playing time or they're just maybe not great guys. Another guy who we already talked about on the pod is Nick Solak. I want him as my second baseman. He's my, in case of emergency, break glass guy. If I can't grab Merrifield, and I didn't grab Merrifield, so now I've got Solak, which I like to counter the DH thing. So, like now, Muncy gets to play in corner or middle infield, and then I can pretty much pick up anyone I want and throw him in second base, throw Solak in the outfield if an outfielder gets injured, um, throw just move move Muncy to second, and then Solak to middle. It just gives you a lot of stuff to do pairing those two together, and I like what that does for my team as well, because I think Solak's a pretty solid player. He could go 2020.
Yeah, no, he definitely could. I like Nick Solak a lot. I wrote in my Texas Rangers top prospects article a couple years ago that he's everywhere he's gone, he's hit, right? Like he's had a couple of 2020 years in college, he hit, and every level of the minors he hit. Yeah, he's not a star, not a stud, but just does a lot of things well, and he just produces. So I'm a big fan of Nick Solak. I have him on a lot of my teams as well. I was actually debating him when I went with Madrigal. It's kind of between those two. Those are the two second basemen I really like in this kind of 150 to 200 range, and overall in the ADP. So I think they're both in for good years. And I'm gonna go. I need another pitcher here. There's a couple I'm eyeing. I'm hoping. I think this guy has a worse chance of falling back to me next time. I'm gonna go Frankie Montas. He's had an up and down career, but he showed at one point he was one of the top pitchers in baseball, for a time. And I don't think he's that good going forward, but as my SP6 here, I really like it. He's in a good pitcher's park. It's a really good splitter. I think I like the pitch mix a lot. I think he can be a good, at least over a K per inning as well. So I'll definitely be okay taking him here. And yep, my other guy fell. I was debating Tyler Mahle and Frankie Montas, and I went with obviously Montas, and Mahle fell here. That's great. So I'll take Tyler Mahle. A lot of love for Mahle in the industry right now. Kind of started breaking out last year, and I think that's legit. I think that continues this year. He takes another step forward. Really like what they're doing there in Cincinnati. I think that's a very, very talented pitching staff. All some of the org changes they've made, and bringing in the drive line and stuff like that. So I really like Tyler Mahle this year. It's one of my breakout picks for starting pitcher. Even though, like I said, he already started breaking out last year. I think that continues this year. I love him getting him as my SP7. I think is really, really good, and lets me kind of ease off the gas pedal with pitching and target more bats here moving forward, and maybe some closures. So I'll lock him up here.
Like both of those picks a lot. I also like to see a lot of pitching, a lot of starters go off the board in this range. And I appreciate that you like to take like really as many starters as you can. I also like that strategy. And I am going to take a starter here. It's just a matter of who. I think I'll go Jameson Taillon. The heat kind of cooled down a little bit for him, but I still am pretty excited about Taillon. I think he could be a really, really good starter, and at his worst, he's probably just decent. So even though I have Mookie Betts and Tim Anderson and a few other guys that also get steals, I do think I'm a little bit behind. And there aren't too many more spots to fill them with, like just in my starting lineup, because I've got a catcher, a couple more outfields, and a middle infield. But that middle infield's really anything. It's just take who you want. And right now, I want Raimel Tapia. He's the leadoff guy for the Rockies. That is great. I think he'll get quite a few steals, which is also great. And then he also has a good batting average. So I see him as like a legit 3-category contributor in 3 of the hardest categories to find guys in. So um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was between him and Leody Taveras. I don't know. I just have a good feeling about Tapia, kind of. And he probably would have fallen to me next round, but I felt like I needed to grab some steals.
Yeah, no, I like Tapia a lot. I wrote about him earlier in the offseason as one of my kind of outfield sleepers or breakouts, whatever you want to call it, for this season. For a lot of what you just said, he's hitting leadoff a lot. He hit leadoff basically every game for the last like month or so down the stretch last year. Good speed, good contact rate. So yeah, I like him. He could run in some pop, right? He's not a zero there, so I guess him running into 10 to 12 home runs, especially at Coors Field. So yeah, like that pick a lot. I've gotten Tapia in a lot of my drafts too. I'm trying to look at who's available for catcher here because it's 2-catcher format, and catchers dry up really quick in this format, but not really looking at catcher quite yet. Yeah, I'm gonna go a closer here, and one that I think could be, really really solid this year. But people, overlook this team in general. It's Pittsburgh Pirates and Richard Rodriguez. And he's one of my favorite kind of late round, ADP 200, plus range relief pitchers because if you're a bad team, that usually means if you're winning, it's winning close games. Like Pittsburgh's not going to blow out many teams. There's not going to be a lot of like 8-2 wins in Pittsburgh this year. So even though they might only have 60 to 70 wins, a lot of those wins are going to be close. So I think he could flirt with 30 saves this year, 25, 30 saves. Solid enough ratios. Don't love him as my first relief pitcher off the board, but kind of the way I've been going in a lot of these drafts where I don't really invest too highly. Unless I can get, like I said, if I can get a Liam Hendricks early, I will. But a lot of times even those guys go too high for my liking. I'm not gonna take Liam Hendricks at like pick 60. So I'll go Richard Rodriguez here. Get some saves.
I'm definitely looking at closers for my next pick, and I wouldn't go Richard Rodriguez because I think his job is less secure than some other guys still on the board. And that's like, I don't care how good you are. I want job security. When you get to this point in closers, so I wouldn't personally take him, but I do get it. Like, I think he's, in terms of like quality, the best reliever remaining, other than maybe like Emilio Pagan, which probably still isn't even true. Like a lot of those Padres or like Braves guys, I like them, but I don't know what's going on. So yeah, Rodriguez.
And San Diego.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and who knows in San Diego, like who's going to close again? I think Pagan came in I think he came in the 7th, and then Pomeranz in the 8th, and then Melanson. So who knows? That might be a straight up committee. It's kind of hard to tell there. So, but I like all the guys they have. Like I like Pagan, I like Pomeranz. I got Pomeranz in a lot of leagues this year. But I'm gonna go back. I'm going back to the hitting side of things here, and get a player here. I'm just trying to find if he's available. Yes, he is. Great. A guy that I've been targeting in basically every draft. I think this, again, might be, along with Corbin Burnes, one of my most rostered players this year. It's Mitch Haniger, Seattle Mariners. He's going to be hitting leadoff, missed all of 2020 due to multiple issues. Multiple kind of not great issues. It was like he had a sore shoulder. It was the back and then the ruptured testicle. So really a rough 12, 18 months for Mitch Haniger, but looks very, very good and very, very healthy again. Was really hitting the ball well this spring. I say looks 100% healthy. And that's what's kind of been reported, that he's back to 100%. And in 2018 and 2019, he was very good. Like, he broke out in 2018, was one of the top 30 or so hitter that season, and the metrics backed it up. He was hitting the ball hard, good barrel rate, all of his expected stats. He kind of hinted that everything he was doing was legit. It wasn't fluky. And then in 2019, even though the average did drop a bit, he was on, I think it was like a 45 homer pace, and he scored 46 runs in like 58 games, even with like a 320 or so OBP, which is kind of an outlier. But I like him a lot. Good power, a little bit of speed. He's hitting leadoff for, I think, an up-and-coming Seattle lineup. So I will take Haniger here. He's been one of my favorite targets around pick 200, and we're at 210 now. So I think this is a good value on him.
Yep. I like him a lot, as well, as is true for most of your picks. Yeah, big fan. I think he's good, and I don't know if he can even be labeled as injury prone. I just think he has gotten unlucky with the injuries, and it's not really his fault.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna double tap some closers here, and start off with Hector Neris. He was named the closer. You can't really say that about any guys left still on the board. And on top of that, I think he is pretty decent. It's definitely not like great or anything, but he's serviceable. And at this point, that's kind of what you're looking for. Next guy I'm going to take as my RP2 is Greg Holland. I don't know if they've come out and said it, but it's pretty obvious he's the closer. And again, I'm not sure how good he is, but I feel pretty solid about his job security. So now I have two closers that I feel good about getting quite a few saves. I think both of their teams are going to be lend themselves to save opportunities because they're good, not great. That's ideal. And then they might not have the best ratios. They might not get a ton of strikeouts, but that's why I have 6 starters that I feel really, really good about. So they pick up some of my late relief pitcher slack, and I like that. So also, before we go on too much more, I do want to just tell the audience, we aren't going to be drafting much of a bench. So at this point, even though I think in a real draft, I would start looking at bench players, but just to fill out the roster, I think we'll take 3 bench players, but just to fill out the roster, it might be worth taking other guys that aren't I might really like Jared Walsh. I do really like Jared Walsh, but I might not take him here because the limited bench spots, and I don't know how well he fits in. So I just wanted to bring that up before it was too late.
Yeah, I can quicken my analysis here too for time's sake. So we're getting, obviously in later rounds here, and even though we're only doing a limited bench, getting this guy, which will be on my first bench player here, because I've already filled my outfield, but I cannot pass on him here at pick where we have 223, and that's people that know me shouldn't be too surprised by this. Jared Kelenic of the Seattle Mariners, who is my pick for AL Rookie of the Year. And I think he's going to be an absolute stud from the get-go. Yeah, he's that type of prospect with the great hit tool, power, speed. I think he can excel right off the bat. And he's going to be up soon. He's going to be up. If he's not up by May 1st, I will be absolutely shocked. And he can be a 5-category contributor right from the get-go. So I really like it.
Especially with all the drama, how could they not call him up?
I was hoping that they were going to just cave because of that and have him on the opening day roster. Just be like, hey, look, no, we're not doing that. Just make it look like, oh, that was just that one crazy guy. Don't worry about him. We're not going to do that. So, but obviously it didn't happen, but he should still be up soon. Unfortunately, the guy I was hoping would fall back to me in this round went right after me, Dustin May, who just got named the number 5 starter for the Dodgers over David Price and Tony Gonsolin. So I was looking at Dustin May here, but I'm gonna go with another reliever here. Get my second reliever, and a guy that was just again, if we were doing this yesterday, I probably won't take him yet, but was kind of somewhat named the closer, or at least the number one guy for saves in the St. Louis bullpen. That's Alex Reyes, a guy that I've liked for a long time. Was a former elite pitching prospect, but below average command and control kind of moved him to the bullpen, which I think he's better suited anyway. But you look at what he brings to the table. He pumps upper 90s with his fastball, can touch triple digits, and he's got two really, really good breaking balls. Both his curve and slider had whiff rates above 40% last year. The slider had a whiff rate, I think it was like 54, 55%, something like that. So I think he can be an elite. He's already has shown he's an elite strikeout pitcher. And yeah, he's gonna walk. His walk rates was not great. So he's gonna walk guys. But I think he's just like a younger, better version of Craig Kimbrell, who was going 100 or so picks ago, or at least 50 or so picks ago. So I'll get my second reliever here and go Alex Reyes.
Yeah. I am unsure of how secure his job is. I heard them talking about the report on the broadcast today, and I like have RotoWire Twitter notifications on. Like in the past few days, I've heard like everything that's happened in baseball. I didn't know like half of the names, but everything that happened I knew, so maybe it just got like lost in all that mess, but I didn't ever hear that. So I was kind of like, huh? When they said they named Alex Reyes the favorite for saves today. But he was pitching in a low leverage situation, which I don't know. I just think the guy is Jordan Hicks. I think that makes the most sense for the team, and have Alex Reyes in like a long relief role. But yeah, at this point, when you're taking, I just took Greg Holland. It's perfectly fine to take Alex Reyes.
Right.
So now, I mentioned a couple rounds ago that I was looking at Raimel Tapia or Leody Taveras. I might just get both. I don't love
Nothing wrong with that.
Taveras. I don't love Taveras, but I mean, he gets steals. I tweeted out the other day, like, what's the difference between Leody Taveras and Victor Robles? Like, I do have Robles ranked one spot higher. I have Taveras ranked one spot higher. I know I'm not with the consensus on that one, but like, why 90 spots apart in ADP? Do you have any explanation about that?
I think for me, the gap between the two, I think Robles has a bit more power potential, but it is odd that there's that big of a gap between them. Like I said, in terms of skills, it's really just power. Even though it might be crazy to say with the exit velocity and stuff that Robles has had, but I think he's gonna get 5 to 10 more home runs per year. But outside of that, they're probably similar in batting average, similar in stolen base totals. I think really what it is Taveras was a good but not great prospect, and Robles was at peak on a lot of top 10 lists. So I think it's the prospect pedigree. I think is what kind of separates them a lot. But yeah, in terms of value, Taveras is a great value for where he's going, because you mentioned he's not that much different than Victor
Yeah.
Robles.
And also, that was round 20. So, yeah, I think that is perfectly a very reasonable pick. I don't love him. I don't think he's very good, but he's on the Rangers, going to get playing time, going to steal bases. I think that is fine at this point. Now I am going to go with one of my a player that I just like and have a good feeling about, and that is Jared Walsh. A lot of times in a lot of drafts, I've been getting both Jared Walsh and CJ Cron. And I have no problem with that. Two first basemen. It does kind of ruin this whole get as much flexibility as possible thing, but when you can get both of them, and that was round 21. So if I can get both CJ Cron and Jared Walsh, I'm happy. I like that. That's a really good uh, duo, I think, of like value first baseman.
Yeah. The only concern I have with Walsh is I don't know, the playing time looks a little iffy right now. I don't He should be the starter, but they kind of have him playing Pujols a lot more. And I'm probably one of the biggest Albert Pujols guys around. He was kind of my first, you know, favorite player in terms of fantasy players that I drafted early on. But I think I feel like since it's probably Pujols' last year, and he put that Instagram post out months ago, kind of wonder if the Angels are kind of just playing him more than they anticipated playing him, just because, like, all right, we probably should play him. Let the fans see him one last time. I wonder if that factors into it. Maybe not. Maybe that I'm totally off base here, but this is kind of weird at how good Walsh was last year. The fact that he kind of was getting spotty playing time this spring. I like the player, but this is my one concern with him is just the potential for playing time. But if he plays, he should be
Yeah,
a really good late round power source for sure.
it's fair, and you're getting a discount here. Like if there was no Albert Pujols, I would take him round 12. Like I really like the player.
Yeah, I do too.
Maybe not round 12, but like 15ish. This is round 21, so like we're accounting for the playing time questions, but Pujols is starting tonight, so that's a little concerning. I just hope that it's like, all right, you can start one more opening day, and then just like once or twice per week, and then the rest is Walsh's. Um, I hope that's the situation. That's more of a hope than like a reasonable,
That could be.
uh, more than a reasonable, like I don't know what the word is, but like a reasonable expectation, I guess. But nevertheless, you have a huge discount. It's round 21, like whatever.
Yeah. Yep. Agree with that.
All right, now it is your
Good
pick.
there.
Who are you looking at?
It's still showing that. Did you? I don't think you actually picked Walsh,
It shows
or
that
my
I
end's
did for
lagging.
me.
Hold on. Let me refresh here. This is
Okay.
showing you as on the clock. Draft board might be lagging a little bit. You gotta love technology.
Yeah.
Hoping the player that I was looking at is still there.
The guys that went after Walsh on my end are Santana, Ty France, Brandon Nimmo, and Ha-Seong Kim.
Okay, so he should still be there. Let me find him again. So I'm going get my first baseman here. Yep, he's still there. Great. Go a little bit of a homer pick here with my Boston Red Sox, but Bobby Dalbec is one that I love as a late round power guy this year. I think there's a slight chance that he could lead the major leagues in home runs. I think that's at least in the realm of possibility. It's like I've said many, many times before. His swing, his kind of profile fits Fenway Park so well. He's more of a pull hitter, though he has all fields power, but he does pull a lot. He elevates the ball well. His launch angle has always been really good. And that, pulling the ball to left field and elevating at Fenway usually means a lot of good things. Either you're clanking one off the monster for a double, or you're hitting one into or over the monster seats. And he was going on a home run barrage this spring. And yes, the swing and miss concerns are very, very prominent. He's going to strike out a ton, probably only going to be a 240, 250 hitter or so. But, if you're in an OBP league, he gets a nice bump because he's always had a pretty solid walk rate. But even if he's only hitting 240, which I think is right where I'd have him, around that 240, give or take, I think there's a good potential for 35 to 40 home runs this year. Wouldn't surprise me if he got over 40 with the type of power he has and the ballpark that he'll be playing half his games in. And another one, like the AL East, like I mentioned earlier, the AL East is just littered with hitters' parks. So he's going to play like at least 2/3 to 3/4 of his games in good hitters' parks, very good hitters' parks at that. So at pick, what are we at? Pick 247, getting a guy that 35 to 40 home run potential this late is pretty damn good, I think so. And I need a first baseman, so that fits there too. So I'll take Bobby Dalbec here and be very happy with it.
Yeah, it's an upside pick, and I see the upside. I would not do it though. But yeah, he could like It's not likely, but it's possible that he leads the league in homers, and you can't really say that about really anybody at this point. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, he's not everybody's cup of tea, as the saying goes, but I really like what I've seen out of Bobby Dalbec. And now I probably need to get a catcher here at some points. I still need to get two catchers, but I still got my corner infield spot to fill as well, so I might go that route first, especially if he's still available. Trying to find him here, and he is not. Never mind. So I will go catcher here, and there's not a lot of great options left, but I'm gonna go an upside pick here, and it could come back to bite me having this guy as my first catcher. But with all the options left that I don't really like too much of, I'm gonna go Alejandro Kirk. He was a trendy catcher pick. When draft season began, but then they brought in Semien and Springer, which moved Grichuk to DH, and those at bats didn't seem to be there, but they did keep him on the roster, and I wonder how much he's going to play. He might only play around half the time at most, but I think if he can get some at bats at DH, some at bats as the backup catcher, his upside is just way further than any other catcher in this range. And you got to wonder. I don't think they would keep him up if they weren't going to at least play him somewhat, right? I don't think he's going to be sitting on the bench and only getting sporadic at bats here and there. So I think he's going to play at least somewhat and get at least half the at bats between catcher and DH. So I'll go upside here, as I don't really want to go with Yadier Molina or Yan Gomes or someone like that. So I'll take Kirk here.
And I don't think Yachty's even available. So yeah, it's getting very shallow. I kind of hate everybody remaining. So I would have gone Kirk if you had not just taken him. But since you did take him, I tweeted this out today as well. Joakim Soria is the only guy I have in every single one of my leagues. He's not like I must have him. In TGFBI, he kind of was, because I waited on closer and was getting very nervous. So I was like, okay, Soria is the only guy with safe job. Have to have him. And now there are concerns about his job, but we're very late. And there's no other reliever remaining that doesn't have questions. Like, I guess Daniel Bard, but no. And Gregory Soto also no. He let up 2 runs in his first start, in his first save opportunity. Who knows if he's the closer next game? So yeah, I'm taking Soria. I think he's the right pick for the closer job if they want to do that in Arizona, but I think in that situation it's actually wise to have a closer so that you can trade him. And Soria is their best shot at getting any value in return. All right. So now I have to take a catcher, I think. Or hold on. Who else could I take? I'm gonna take Tony Gonsolin. Just like
That's a good pick. I was actually looking at him for my next pick. That's a good pick.
Am I though? I don't know. At this point, everyone's basically the same, so I really am not sure. I think that might be a lie, actually. I will go Drew Smyly. Oh, I clicked Brian Anderson after all of that. So just imagine that Brian Anderson is Drew Smyly, I guess. Whatever. So yeah, Drew Smyly, he had a great year last year. I don't think it was completely real, but again, round 23, what if it was? So Drew Smyly at this point, yeah, I think the most likely outcome is somewhere in between last year and his career norm, which is still not good. Like if he does that for enough starts, you would probably want to drop him, but there's always a chance, and it's a high upside play. So yeah, Drew Smyly it is.
Yeah, no, I was looking at both him and Gonsolin. So with Smyly off the board, I will go Tony Gonsolin here. I was actually hoping to get Elijah Hernandez, who went in the middle of your last two picks. So I like Elijah Hernandez this year, but I'll go Tony Gonsolin. It's at this point, yeah, he's not going to be a starter. He's kind of one of the odd men out there in Los Angeles, but I think he's still going to pitch meaningful innings this year. Even if that doesn't come in the rotation right off the bat, because he's one of those guys. He's going to come and probably have like 2 or 3 innings here, 2 or 3 innings there, and still get. I think he's still going to get over 100 innings this year, and maybe even creep up higher than that, because obviously Kershaw is always seeming like he's like one start away from going on the IL. There's not really a lot of guys that are just like locked into that rotation, even though there's a lot of talent there. But always that Kershaw injury. Bueller's dealt with some stuff as well, some blister stuff. So, Urias has dealt with, multiple arm and shoulder injuries. So I think there's a good chance that he could get some starts this year. Maybe not a ton, but maybe 10 or 12 starts, and there's still all of his relief outing. So I think 100, 120 innings are still very much in play here. And, 120 good innings too. I really like Tony Gonsolin's stuff. He's got 3 or 4 pitches he can miss bats with, so I think he'll get a ton of strikeouts, keep the ratios in check, and if he gets into that rotation, I think he could be a top 50 starter this year. So kind of like a upside pick this late in the draft. But hey, but this late in the draft, if it doesn't work out, who cares, right? You might drop him for a hot free agent in April or May. So there's really little risk here and potential for a solid reward. So I like Tony Gonsolin.
Yeah, and also like in TGFBI, it's a short week, of course, but like I was making a decision. Should I start German Marquez or literally no one? So I went with literally no one. But like a guy like Tony Gonsolin, great, like just throw him in. He's at Coors, which is unfortunate, but like you can just throw him in, hope for 4 cumulative innings over this 4-day weekend, and he'll get you something.
Yeah.
And that, I think pitching is going to be tough. A lot of guys are going to be injured. And you already mentioned when you were talking about McCullers, like everyone is going to have not many innings. And so that kind of brings the average down, and that makes Gonsolin and guys like Gonsolin and McCullers be closer to the league average than anything else. So yeah, I like that pick. Obviously, since I was about to pick him.
Especially right. Yes, especially like I think innings were already trending down as it was, and then factor in this is the first full year back after the shortened COVID season, so I think teams are just going to play it cautious and not obviously they'll let even Garrett Cole was getting limited a little bit today. I don't think that'll last for long, but I think a lot of teams will handle it that way, where they just kind of like scale their pitchers back just a little bit, don't want them to go back to full 100% workloads from pre 2020. So I think that'll factor in as well. And now I gotta fill. Still gonna fill catcher and corner infield here. So I'm gonna fill my corner infield with the first baseman that I really like. Been a big fan of his ever since his days in the Tampa Bay Org. That's Nate Lowe. Had a really, really good game today at opening day. But even without that, I still would have drafted him in this area. I think he's a guy that is could hit for a good average, good amount of power. Texas isn't as much of a hitter-friendly environment as it used to be, but that Texas team, that lineup, I mean, like, it could be sneaky good. It has to have a lot of things break right, but Gallo and David Dahl, I think that could be Leody Taveras, like the guy that you drafted. I think that could be at least a fun team to watch, and they put up a lot of runs on opening day. I know it's not going to happen all the time, but I think there's some good talent in that lineup, and Lowe will probably be hitting in the middle of that. So I think there's a good chance that he could be a breakout corner infielder this year. So I like him here at around 24. I think it's good value.
I think there is no team that you can say has a bad lineup. Like even the Pirates, they're solid-ish. I mean, of course, they're not good, but like today, their lineup, to me at least, looked pretty good. Adam Frazier leading off. Adam Frazier leading off. Brian Hayes, love him. Brian Reynolds was like really good 2 years ago. Colin Moran, I like him too. Kevin Newman had like one of the best springs ever. Gregory Polanco, of course, he's going to get injured like in 3 days, but for now he's solid. Jacob Stallings is a
Unfortunately,
catcher. Jacob Stallings is a catcher. I'm fine with him there. And then Anthony Offord, that's your 8-hole hitter. A lot of teams don't have 8 good hitters. So yeah, like I don't think you can really say any lineup's bad. Like there are definitely things that could go right for any lineup. And yeah, the Rangers, they're
yeah.
kind of sneaky. With this pick right here, so something that I like to do is grab Myles Straw just really late as a bench option. I ideally don't want to start him. Like draft him to start him. But I feel pretty decent about my steals right now. But if they get bad, or if I want to secure my lead, I can throw him in for a couple weeks and let him do some work, let him get some steals, and then replace him with whoever I find on waivers or whatever. Like use him as a fill-in, even though it might not make the most sense for your like actual team. But yeah, I like a guy like Myles Straw in this type of situation.
Yeah, cheap speed, definitely like Myles Straw. He's one of the faster guys in baseball overall, so really like him there.
Yep. So I think we have 2 more picks. At least I do.
I gotta fill out my second catcher and then one more bench here. I think the draft room froze me again. Let me
Oh wait,
refresh real quick here.
it's my no. I fooled myself. It's my pick
Oh,
again.
okay. You didn't
I
pick.
forgot I
Okay.
was on the turn. Yeah. So I did take Straw. Now, oof, I will go Austin Hayes, but that's a lot of outfielders. I want a position player. Ooh, okay. Jesus Aguilar. He at least on roster resource, he has everyday playing time. He had a good game today, 2 for 4, I think. And last year he was really good. 3 years ago he was really good. He had one awful year in the middle. But I think he might just be a good batter. And he's batting high in what I think is a pretty solid lineup too.
Yeah, that's not a bad pick at all. I guess I'll fill my second catcher spot here. Not not anybody that I'm super high on in this range, but I guess at this late might as well just go upside. As if it doesn't work out, I can ride the whoever's hot. Like last year, I got Severino for a few weeks when he was hot. It's kind of riding the hot streaks. So I'll go upside here and go Ryan Jeffers of the Twins. Good power bat. I think he could be a 25 homer hitter over a full season. He's probably going to be more so in a timeshare with Mitch Garver. So maybe he only gets 300 to 350 at bats or so. But I think that maybe slots in, get some time at DH or something like that too. So give him enough at bats to let that power play. And I think even in that amount of time, he still could flirt with like 15 to 18 home runs. He's got that type of power. So I'll go with him here as my second catcher.
Yep.
And then my last
Your team
pick.
really looks like my TGFBI team. You have a lot of the same guys. Ryan Jeffers, Kyle Tucker, and it's a pretty extensive list. Trea Turner. Yeah. So obviously I like it as well.
See, last pick here. I guess I'll grab another pitcher here, another upside play. I'll go Tariq Skubal of the Tigers. He's in the rotation. There's a little bit of question whether him and Casey Mize would be in the rotation, but both of them have made it, at least for now. Maybe Spencer Turnbull comes back and that bumps Mize out, but I think Skubal is fairly safe to stay in that rotation. And big time strikeout stuff. He was one of the top strikeout pitchers in the minor leagues last year, or 2019. I guess I'm saying last year because it wasn't last year anymore. We had a lot of strikeout. I think he can keep the ratios in check. He's a big breaking ball that he can get a lot of swing and misses on. Good fastball as well. And the rest of Arsenal isn't great, but he's a serviceable changeup as well. I think he can at least give you a lot of strikeouts. And this late, I think that's really all you really need. So I'll take Screwball here and hope that he continues his path and breaks out this year.
Yeah, I like the pick.
I think that was my last pick too. Yeah, I got 3 bench guys now.
It was. I'm gonna just take my second catcher, and that will be Omar Narvaez. Nothing special. Maybe he returns to form after a really, really bad season. But yeah, I like my team. What do you think about your team? Now I'm looking at it right now. I like your steals a lot. Your pitching staff looks really good, and you have a lot of alternatives as well. I like how you built it.
Yeah.
Like, steals are not going to be a concern. You have Trea Turner.
Yeah.
You have Yoan Moncada, Kyle Tucker, Austin Meadows, Tommy Pham, Victor Robles, and then a few other guys who might get a few chip-ins. So yeah, I like what you did.
Yeah, I think speed's gonna be. This team's definitely gonna be one of the top teams in speed. Obviously this is a mock draft, not a played out league, but I can't see. I think it would take a lot of injuries for this not to be like one of the top speed teams in the league. I think I got some good power as well. And I even in the middle after I drafted Molly, I took a screenshot, sent it to my buddy Chris Clegg that writes with me at Fantrax. He's on my co-host on the Fantrax Toolshed, and I was like, man, I think this might be one of my favorite pitching drafts I've ever had, and too bad it's only a mock draft. But yeah, I like my team overall. I think I got some good values. I love my outfield. Yeah, I think this could be a contending team if this was an actual league that we played out. So I'm very happy with that.
And I like my team too. I really like the pitching staff. I'm glad that Jameson Taillon is my SP6. And Sandy Alcantara is my SP5. So that's good. I have 3 closers that I feel decent about. That's really the goal there. And then everyone else, I think will have, except for Walsh, everyone has playing time on my offense and definitely contributes in, I think, pretty complementary categories. Like I think it's a pretty balanced offense. Maybe I'm lacking a little on speed and we should make a trade, but the Taveras Tapia duo, hopefully that does a decent amount for my speed, because other than that I don't see much going well here. I guess Betts and Anderson and Solak. So yeah, I guess it's fine. Maybe I should have looked at steals like instead of Cabrian Hayes or something, but that's just perfecting it. I think it's a pretty solid team, and I have Straw if I want to throw him in for a couple weeks as well. All right, well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It really meant a lot. I know scheduling was tough.
Thank you for having me.
That's why we're no problem, and that's why we're doing a mock draft on opening day, because scheduling's hard when you have to make a podcast that's like an hour long and have plenty of other responsibilities. So yeah, it still gave us a good excuse to talk about a lot of interesting guys that I may not have covered on the show yet. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Do you want to drop all of your work and like where to find you and all that type of thing?
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun. I always love talking baseball. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter at EricCross04. All my written work is over at fantraxhq.com, with the exception of my work in the Fantasy Baseball Black Book that Joe Pisapia puts out every fall or winter. That's a great book there. And then my 2 podcasts, the 5-Tool Pod with Jesse Roach of Baseball Prospectus and Jake Devereaux from the Dynasty Guru. And then Fantrax Toolshed that I mentioned with Chris Clegg. So I got those 2 podcasts, and just a lot of, I do, now that we're in season, I will be doing 2 articles weekly in addition to the 2 pods, at least 2 articles. Maybe sometimes I'll fit in a third, but I'll do a waiver wire /fab article on Fridays. And then early in the week, Monday, Tuesday, I'll be doing it'll be kind of some sort of a dynasty / prospect focused piece. Kind of, the topics will be rotating, but so I try to cover everything I can, and it's gonna be a fun year. I'm just excited that we have baseball back and a full 162 game season. So thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no problem. And I definitely like keeping up with your work. I think it's a lot of good stuff.
I appreciate that.
As always, you can follow me on Instagram or Twitter at FOV_sports. I'll talk to you next time, but until then, Eisen out.